On your buzzer. If you haven't skewed by 12, your week is pissed, mate. Oi, who's going to do a dairy run, boys? Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. You ripper. How good are those Clive Palmer ads on the Big Bash, lads? They're right. Charlene, call your mum to come and pick up the kids. They're pissing me off. Australia! Don't you say that about Jackie Lambie, Bazza. She's a legend. I'll deck ya. Oh no. Oh, Bazza's knocked me teeth out. Oh, Centrelink's not going to pay for this. So today we're going to talk about private health insurance, and I need to be really clear that we're not advising whether you should or shouldn't have private health insurance. We're just pointing out the tax implications to help you in your own decision making. So the main issue around private health insurance, and the one that causes the most confusion, is the Medicare levy surcharge. This is different from the Medicare levy. The Medicare levy is paid by basically all taxpayers except low income earners, and that's used to fund the Medicare system. However, if you're a high income earner and you don't have an appropriate level of private hospital insurance, then you can get slugged with the Medicare levy surcharge on top of the Medicare levy. So a few factoids about that. Having private health insurance cannot get you out of paying the Medicare levy, only the surcharge. Therefore, if you're not a high income earner, there's no immediate tax benefit to having private health insurance. The income test is not based on taxable income, but income for MLS purposes. Now this is your taxable income plus some things added back, such as salary sacrifice super, reportable fringe benefits, etc. You only have to pay the surcharge if you're a high income earner. In 2019, that means a single on an income of 90,000 or a family on an income of 180,000, plus there's $1,500 for each child after the first. For private health insurance to be effective in avoiding the surcharge, it needs to be an appropriate level of cover. This means it has to be a hospital policy with an excess of $500 or less for singles and an excess of $1,000 or less for families. Both you, your spouse and your dependents all need to be covered by the private health insurance policy to avoid the surcharge. You can't just insure the high income earner in the family to avoid it. Next to this comes the amount of surcharge you pay if you have to. So previously this was a nice simple calculation of 1% of your total income. Now it's means tested. So for example, if you have a family income of over $280,000, you pay a surcharge of 1.5% of your total income. Next is the rebate. So historically, everyone who had private health insurance got a 30% rebate. This is now being means tested again. The first change is that the old 30% is now being reduced every year, and it's currently down to 25.415%, which is 85% of what it used to be. And the second change of this is that once you go over those tiers I mentioned earlier, the 30% goes down to 20%, and then 10%, and then 0. And each of these are being reduced the same as the 30% has been. So, for example, a family on $220,000 a year combined has to have private health insurance, or they'll pay a 1.25% surcharge. But if they take out a policy, they're only entitled to a rebate of about 8.5%, whereas this was once 30%. And finally, there's lifetime loading. Now this one is probably the least known of all the issues around private health insurance, but it can be the nastiest. So for every year after you turn 30, you'll get slugged with a 2% loading on a private health insurance policy if you do eventually decide to take one out. This loading will apply for 10 years once you take out a policy and hold it continuously, and the loading can be capped at 70%. So for example, say you wait until you're 51 to take out hospital cover. This is 20 years after you turn 30, which means you'll get slugged an extra 40% on your private health insurance policy for the next 10 years after you take the policy out. So a basic policy for a single at 51 might be around about $2,500 a year. If you wait until you're 51 to take that policy out, that'll cost you about $10,000 a year in missed rebates, which will cost you about $10,000 over that 10-year period. So that's it. Piece of piss, really. Now I'm going to go find Baz and I'm going to smash him. He's probably at Charlene's house. You bastards, write down in the comments other stuff you want me to talk about, or I'll smash the piss out of you guys too. See ya!